Real estate agents, if you have a buyer client, today I'm going to show you exactly how to conduct a buyer consultation, so stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're all having an incredible day. If you don't know, my name is Aaron. I'm a real estate agent here in the Chicagoland area. And if you enjoyed this video, please do me a favor, hit the like button, comment your thoughts, feedback, questions, concerns, whatever you want in the comment section. I will reply to every single one of those. And if you're new here and you haven't subscribed, do me the greatest honor and subscribe so you can see more content like this. That being said, let's get to the topic at hand, which is buyer consultations. Now, I'm a real estate agent. I've been in the business for about 5 years now. I would say a good bulk of my clientele have been buyers over the last few years, right? I would say I'm 60% buyers, 40% sellers. And with that, I have learned a lot about how to handle buyers to make it very easy on myself and basically systemize the process so that way it's very smooth, hassle-free, and my clients are happy and I'm happy when working with buyers. I'm going to show you exactly what to do when you have a buyer, a brand new client sitting in front of you. More specifically, this is going to be best for first-time home buyers because they're going to have the most questions, the most concerns, and if you sit them down and have what's called a buyer consultation, it's going to be incredibly helpful for them, and they're going to see you as an expert, which means when you give advice, it's heard and taken into consideration and sometimes acted upon, which is very important. I made a similar video about how to handle buyer clients back in the day, like a few years ago. I'll put a link up in there for you if you want to go watch it. This is a continuance to that video, but I'm going to dive a lot deeper into exactly what to say at the buyer consultation. I'm going to outline it for you, and then I'm going to tell you exactly what I say. The reason we're making this video is because behind the camera is my intern, and I want to make a PDF of everything I'm going to talk about so that way I can share with my clients after the buyer consultation. Now let's quickly go over how to set the buyer consultation so that way when the client is coming in, they kind of know why they're coming in. So they're not feeling like they're wasting their time, okay? Because sometimes buyers just want to look at houses. So here's what I do. Let's say, for example, somebody DMs me on Instagram, hey, I'm interested in buying a house. I ask a couple of questions, get a feel for what they want, what's their timeline, etc. Then I'll say something along the lines of, all right, this is great. What I like to do is set up a time to meet with you in my office for 30 minutes to an hour and go over the entire process with you, answer any questions you may have, and look at properties together so I can get some live feedback and help you better. Does that work for you? And almost every single time, when I say almost, I actually mean 100% of the time, it's a yes and they come in, right? So that's generally how I set the appointment. It's very easy with buyers because they have a bunch of questions and they want an answer. Now that we have established a nice baseline to work from, let's go into the first thing you're going to talk about when they walk into your office, and that is the process to buying a house. Once somebody understands the process of buying a home and truly how simple it is, it's not this great overcomplicated thing. If you can break it down to steps and they understand how easy it is, they're even more confident to move forward. So I've had several occasions where a client is 9 months from buying a house, they meet with me, and then they're like, well, can we go see a few houses now? I'm like, of course you can. 2 weeks later, they're under contract. Because once you explain how easy it is, they're not as scared to move forward. So let's go over the process to buying a house. Boom, we are back. As you can tell, there's more things written on the board. I'm going to break it down step by step. There's only 3 of them, so this should be very quick, painless, and easy. I do want to preface everything by saying this is how things work in Illinois. It is somewhat similar in all states, but if your state does not have an attorney, things are going to be a little bit different in that sense. So first, I like to go over the process. Once they know the process, I like to go over the expenses, okay? So I tell my clients, step 1 is what's considered attorney review and inspection, otherwise known as AI. Very simple, straightforward, pretty self-explanatory. So once you get an accepted contract, all the deadlines begin from the acceptance date, and they're all business days. Weekends don't count, right? So from your acceptance date in Illinois, and this is a number I put on the contract, you have 2 to 3 business days to drop off your earnest money. And most brokerages will ask that you submit the earnest money in certified funds. So that means a cashier's check. Usually, when I tell people that's when the earnest money is due, before they even ask me, well, what does that all mean? I then explain what does earnest money mean, okay? So what earnest money is, if you're not familiar with the process, it's basically a good faith deposit. It is a portion of your down payment you are giving the seller ahead of time because it's going to take you 30 to 45 days to come back with the rest of the money, right? And in those 30 to 45 days, technically, you have a contract on that property. The seller cannot sell to anybody else, so you have control over the property. And if for some reason you don't meet your duties that are under the contract, then the seller is going to suffer damages, and the earnest money is basically for them to recoup on those damages. So it's a good faith deposit. It's not legally required. You could put 0 if you want, but good luck getting your offer accepted, right? Always make sure to tell your clients that it's not an additional expense, it's a portion of your down payment upfront. Then I explained the set of circumstances that can result in them losing their earnest money. Now in the state of Illinois, the real estate purchase contract is heavily favored towards the buyer. So it's very difficult for people to lose their earnest money. I think this is the same in most states. It's very heavily favored towards the buyer. And I always tell my clients there's only 2 ways you're going to lose your earnest money. Number 1 is if you're negligent. What that means is basically we go under contract, you do the inspection, then you go to Hawaii for 5 weeks and we don't hear from you. That's blatant negligence. We're going to miss all our deadlines, and for that reason you're going to waste everyone's time and lose your earnest money. And the second way they're going to lose their earnest money is if after the clear to close has been given. What that means is all contingencies have been waived and we are ready to go. The loan is approved, the money is there, you just got to go sign for it, right? Once all that is done, if you simply wake up and change your mind, you will lose your earnest money, because at that point it's fair, you have wasted everybody's time, right? But if you lose your job, if there's a hurricane, if the house isn't there anymore, those set of circumstances will affect your mortgage, which means you're no longer clear to close and you would be able to get your earnest money back. Next up is the inspection, which you have to do within 5 business days of the acceptance date, right? So let's say you get an offer accepted on Monday, you have until the following Monday to conduct your inspection. Then you have a following 10 business days from acceptance date to do what's called your attorney review letter. This is where, at least in the state of Illinois, we have attorneys handle the real estate transaction. They will go through the contract, they'll add extra contingencies to protect you on the liability side, remove things on the contract that don't apply to you, and then ask for any repair requests or credits that you want after doing your inspection. And then you basically get to renegotiate the price you purchased for. What I always tell my clients is this. Let's say you go in, you see a house, you fall in love with it, and you want to pay $250, right? You pay $250, you go do the inspection, and you had no idea it needed a whole new furnace. Well, that would impact how much you were going to offer them initially if you knew the damages to the property, right? So this is why you get to renegotiate and ask the seller to make repairs or ask for credit. So this whole process is considered step 1. It takes anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks, depending how slow the process is and how, if there is any delays. And about 80% of deals are going to fall through in step 1. Right? As you can tell, there's a lot of things going on, and there's a couple of deadlines to meet, and the inspection is the killer of them all. And the last thing I want to mention about step 1, which I feel is one of the most important things, I don't know why I kept it last. At least in Illinois, you can back out of a real estate contract within the first 5 business days for any reason except the purchase price. All right, what that means is basically if you stubbed your toe and you're like, this is a sign I shouldn't buy this house, you can back out. That's a good reason to back out. That's not a good reason, but it's a reason you can use to back out, right? As long as it's got nothing to do with the purchase price, you can back out of the contract. Within the first 10 business days, if you do the inspection and you don't like it, again, you could back out because the inspection results were not satisfactory to you. So the first 2 weeks is basically the contract is irrelevant because there's so many ways for you as a buyer to get out of it, very few ways for the seller to get out of it. So always keep that in mind if you're looking to buy a house. Now, that being said, let's move on over to step number 2. You have done your inspection, attorney review, you asked for repairs, your credits, your deadlines have all been met. Now it's time for you to get your loan started and finished up. In this 2-week process, your lender may send you preliminary disclosures. They may send you the loan application just like the standard, but they're not going to process anything until you finish this step 1. Once you're done with step 1, that's when the appraisal is officially ordered, because a lot of lenders, if they're smart, they know that deals are going to fall through 80% of the time in those first 2 weeks. So they're not going to waste your money on an appraisal on a home you don't end up buying. So we want to make sure we're going to keep moving forward before we start the loan process, which is the first thing, paying about $400 to $600 for an appraisal. All right? So we pay for the appraisal, and what could happen in this scenario is, number 1, it can appraise at purchase price, which means nothing happens. We carry on. Everything is good. It can appraise for more than purchase price, which is great for you, but it doesn't really mean much. We carry on. Nothing happens. If it appraises for less than the purchase price, then damn, we are back in business, and we get to renegotiate with the seller. In that set of circumstances, if it appraises less than the purchase price on the contract, now you as the buyer have the right to back out or renegotiate with the seller. So really three things that can happen. You can back out, the seller can lower the price to the appraised amount, or you and the seller can negotiate and meet in the middle. Next up, this all happens at the same time. You submit your loan application. So basically, they're gonna ask for a bunch of things. Things that, in your opinion, have nothing to do with your mortgage. Give it to them anyway. I always tell my clients, I know it sucks, I know it's annoying, I know it's like almost an invasion of your privacy, but this is what they need to give you $200,000, $300,000 so you can understand if they want to be a little thorough about your finances or whatever the case is. So whatever they ask for, provide it, and then they can submit your loan application. So once the appraisal is back, the loan app is submitted, you get what's called your conditional approval. That is the first step to celebration. What this means is that your loan is officially approved, given you meet these XYZ conditions. And at this point, this is what I tell all my clients, and at this point, it should all be pretty simple, like updated bank statement, get homeowners insurance, provide copy of ID, very small ticky-tacky stuff like that. If a major issue occurs on the conditional approval, that means me and you made a mistake today at the buyer consultation. Either you didn't tell me something or I didn't catch something, which is why we have a problem on the conditional approval, which won't happen because that's why we're here having this 40-minute conversation about how the process works. Just to experience a couple of catastrophic things that can happen on the conditional approval that, hey, your loan is approved given these conditions would be proof of funds for the down payment. Yes, they can approve your loan without proving how much money you got in the bank. However, they won't give you a clear to close until you prove that you have enough for the down payment and the closing costs, and they can trace it. So on several occasions, I've had buyers have cold hard cash, and they expect to bring that to closing. While I was a newer agent, I didn't think this was something that I need to cover at the buyer consultation and end up kicking me in the ass later down the line. So when you meet with your clients, ask them where are their down payment funds located. So once you meet all your conditions, you move on to step 3, which is basically the closing process, my favorite part, where me and you as real estate agents get paid, the seller gets to sell their house, and the buyer gets to buy a house. It's the best day of the world, right? So first, your buyer's gonna, after the conditional approval is all done, your buyer's gonna get what's called closing disclosures. And it almost, I think this is an every state thing, the closing disclosures must be signed a minimum of 3 days before the closing date, right? So if you're closing on a Thursday, those disclosures better be signed on a Monday. And what this basically means is the lender has to disclose all the fees, the official fees you're going to be paying at closing. This is important because in the beginning, the closing disclosures they send you week 1 under contract is completely different because they don't have any figures from the seller, right? Or from you, or from how much their appraisal costs, or the other fees associated, how much your rate is, all that, they don't know. So everything is a guess. But at the closing, it's all official paperwork, right? So they may not have the sell side sometimes, and may be lacking a couple of fees, a couple of credits, but they will know all the lender information, that all the lender numbers will be 100% accurate, and you as a buyer have to sign off. Otherwise, you can't close. Once this is all signed, you're ready to go. You get what's called the CTC, otherwise known as a clear to close. It's time to celebrate, pop the champagne, show up to closing, sign the paperwork, get carpet tone because there's a lot of paperwork, and then get the keys, move in, and then call me in a couple years when you want to sell. That's basically it. That is the buyer consultation. Now, I kind of rushed through it because we don't have all day. You probably got things going on, but that is the gist of what we talk about at the buyer consultation. That is the process that you as a real estate agent probably know a lot better in your specific market, and you can explain it in your own words, right? Now, once I'm done here, I then go over, let's talk about some of the expenses you're going to incur as you buy a house. So I start with the first thing you have is your earnest money, which again is a portion of your down payment, but I'm gonna count it as an expense because you're gonna be writing a check early on. Second is your inspector, right? And then I'll go over how much an inspection costs, which in my market anywhere from $300 to $600 depending on the size of the home, multifamily, single family, condo, etc. Right? Then you have your attorney fee. Again, depending on if you want to hire a $350 attorney or a $1,200 attorney. It all varies depending on what the customer wants or what the client wants to do. Next up, you have your appraisal, which is the second thing you have to pay for before closing. And that's going to be anywhere from $400 to $600. So that's the other thing you pay before closing. Everything else is paid at closing. So inspection, appraisal, paid up front. Everything else will be paid at closing. What's everything else? The most expensive item on any closing disclosure will be your title charges. Now, in my opinion, this is a personal opinion, I'm back with you. I'm breaking the fourth wall here with you, okay? It's called the title fees, and this is basically extortion. What title is basically the company, the lender requires you to have title insurance. Any property you buy, you're gonna need title insurance, right? And what the title company does is they trace back the origin of that property to make sure that, you know, there's never been any issues where somebody, like Joe sold it to Sally, but Joe never had the right to sell it to Sally. So Sally never had the right to sell it to you, right? So things like that don't happen. So they basically track down the deed from like the original time it was sold up to today, make sure who's selling it to you is legally allowed to. Title charges could be anywhere from $3 to $5 grand. I've seen as high as $6. So depending on where you're buying, what you're buying, these are some expenses they're gonna have to incur. The title company also does a lot of the middleman work, so they get a lot of the seller figures, the buyer figures, the lender figures, they put them all together, and you actually do your closing at the title company, not the lender's office and not any of the real estate offices. You go straight to the title company, and then you have the most unpredictable item, which are your prepaids. If you are buying in a city that requires the buyer to pay transfer stamp tax, this is very popular in New York, very popular in Chicago. There's a couple of cities in the suburbs of Illinois that have that. Homeowners insurance, you gotta pay a year's worth up front. You have to pad your escrow account with 3 months of property taxes paid for, and small things like that, which again add up to your closing costs. So I break that down for all my clients and they understand exactly what they're paying for. So it's never an issue of, hey, you never told me that I had to pay $1,200 to get a loan. I would have just bought cash, whatever the case is, right? So once we're all done with that process, I'll say, okay, great. Now you know the process. You know how much it costs. Tell me what you're looking for. And me and you, we're going to look at everything on the market, every single house that fits that criteria. And I'm going to keep it as general of a search as I can get it. So we look at everything and we do process of elimination. And we chop it down. So that way, the fear of missing out, of losing a home that you didn't know existed, or finding a better home doesn't exist. So that is the buyer consultation. I can't feel my throat, so I need to stop talking right away. This video is over. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, subscribe. If I do have a PDF form, I don't know when you're watching this, it will be in the description. That's pretty much it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.